All right, so the next thing I want to talk about on today's show is the fact that Mr. Ryan Serhant is being sued by a Keller Williams in Philadelphia. And so what I want to do is I want to kind of go through this new report that just got released last week. I tried to get the plaintiff on the show today. They're going to get back to me. Hopefully I can, because I really want to get their take on this, because I have dealt with this and I've been on both sides of this equation. I'm sure most of you listening or watching the show have some experience with what's happening with this major lawsuit that just got filed. So let me read the suit and then we'll kind of unpack it. So a Pennsylvania brokerage accused Serhant, who is a Philadelphia-based broker, of a scheme to loot the company for the New York's founding firm expansion to the Keystone State. Okay? Keller Williams Black Label is the plaintiff. They named the 2-year-old brokerage founder, Ryan Serhant, amongst others, who one of the people named in the suit, her name was Andrea Adri, who was a newly recruited Pennsylvania team leader for this Keller Williams brokerage. In the complaint, they claimed that Serhant, amongst others, are stealing clients' intellectual property, confidential information, while crippling its ability to operate. The brokerage and its parent business, the Condo Shop LLC, are seeking more than $10 million in damages. The plaintiffs are also seeking a preliminary injunction barring Serhant and this other woman from using any of their information, as it alleges that they are taking essentially their intellectual property. With the scheme accomplished, defendants left Black Label as a shattered, empty shell, having stripping it from its clients, its assets, and the ability to do business. This is the claim in the complaint. So Black Label's director of marketing, Michael Skokowski, and former marketing coordinator, Kaylee Badinsky, who were allegedly recruited to join this new team or this new company that Serhant's creating in Philadelphia by Andrea Adri. So Serhant and representatives for his firm did not respond. The wrongdoing stated months before any agents defected to Serhant, during which time several defendants used Black Labels, which is the Keller Williams team or the Keller Williams brokerage. They claim that they used that company's marketing materials to create for Serhant, deliberately sabotaging Black Label's social media accounts while claiming those accounts had been hacked. So this new team, which I think they're calling the Associate Select, had several agents resign, according to the complaint, while others provided the funding for the new team. Now, once the team was up and running, the brokers took down numerous Black Label listings before relisting them with the new Serhant company. So this can go here. There's two sides of this argument. All right. So let me kind of give you my thoughts on this. Again, I'm going to try to get people from each side of this lawsuit on the podcast here when I can. But I have been, I have seen this go both ways. All right. You've got, on one hand, most of the people in real estate are, in fact, 1099 independent contractors. And so you have these companies and these brokers trying to enforce these non-competes, which is probably the basis of this lawsuit. And they're very difficult to enforce because of people being independent contractors. Whose client is whose, and we don't have any access to what contracts were signed, so it's very hard to speculate. Is there a basis for the claim or not? We have no idea. We don't really have any information on it yet. This story literally just dropped. But on one side of the equation, maybe and this is just what I've seen in my experience. It goes either way, and it just depends on kind of what side you fall on. Let's talk about this from the side of the Keller Williams franchise. I understand the pain that this causes a company, how debilitating this can be on a real estate team and in your operations in your company when you have maybe a lot of your leaders seemingly behind the scenes planning this huge thing, although meanwhile still working for your brokerage. You're still paying them potentially. They're still eating into your resources. They're still potentially using your resources to create a team or a company that soon will compete with you. That is it's so frustrating. And frustrating is probably not even, it doesn't give the pain that this is due, doesn't give it justice. That's why they're suing Serhant for $10 million, because there's a lot at stake. When you, and this is the biggest, one of the biggest issues, there's many issues in our industry, but another huge, massive issue with people being 1099 independent contractors, because people are coming and going all the time. And the biggest challenge for broker owners, team leaders, and I have been on this side, and it is so painful. And I don't know what you can do about it, but that is the fact that you pour everything as a great leader into people. You want them to be successful. You pour in time, energy, resources, your years and years of expertise into these people, because your goal as a leader is to help your people win, right? And the most frustrating thing is inevitably those people leave. And in some cases, like this one, when those people leave, they then become your direct competitor. And based on this story, not only do a lot of times they become your direct competitor, I think the big challenge, or one of the big pain points, is you just used all my stuff, not only that I taught you over the last decade, you used all my material, you used all my resources, you used all my operations. You essentially used my business to create a competing entity that's just essentially a shell of everything we had here. And I think that's the claim of this lawsuit. That's one side of this argument. The other side of the argument is from maybe the 1099 independent contractor that says, well, I mean, that's the risk you take in being in this business. That's the cost of doing business. I'm not a W-2'd employee. I'm running my own. I'm self-employed. And therefore, the counter argument to these claims of non-competes is that, well, it's difficult to fight these in court to get a judge to say, well, yeah, you can't do business because you can't create a livelihood or create an income for your family. And that's very difficult to defend in court. This to me sounds a little different though. I don't think that they're trying to go after a non-compete potentially. We'll see when there's more information that comes out. This has to do with the stealing of the IP and proprietary information as a competing entity potentially. It's a very, very painful situation. Again, I have been on both sides of this, and it's unfortunate that these things happen all too often. But there's another part of this too that I think is worth talking about, and that is, don't hate the player, hate the game. And what I mean by that is this. On one side of the equation, you've got these big, big companies, all right, that traditionally have been massive industry disruptors. They have recruited like crazy to build their companies. Keller Williams being one of them. And now you have all these new companies so let me back up for a second. Keller Williams had its day when it was the new kid in town. And they saw this massive, massive rise in agent count. There was a day where Keller Williams were popping up, these market centers were popping up in every city across the country. And for those that remember this, for a lot of agents, and a lot of broker owners, it caused a lot of frustration because they would open up shop and they would put on the full court press when it comes to recruiting. I mean, they were doing everything under the sun. They were recruiting everybody and everything. I mean, that was a huge thing at Keller Williams. It's just their recruiting. I mean, they've got all kinds of recruiting training and coaching and all kinds of stuff. And now where I think Keller Williams is at is in more of a, what I call it, a holding pattern where they're trying to just stabilize because they're a massive entity, and their growth trajectory, the way that it was maybe 10 or 15 years ago, isn't what it is today. They're in more of, hey, how do we retain the agents that we have? Well, now you've got all these new companies coming up and recruiting like crazy, doing exactly what Keller Williams did to grow, and now they don't like it. I see this across the board. All these lawsuits being filed and all these complaints being filed from Keller Williams team leaders and broker owners that one just not too long ago was doing the same thing that these people are now doing to them, and they don't like it. They don't like the fact that their top talent and their top people are being recruited away from them when it was their own game. And so this is a very, very difficult thing. And I'm not, campaigning for one or the other. I'm just bringing things, I guess, awareness around the truths that I see with this whole dynamic. So it's going to be interesting to find out what happens, with this case. And is there enough for a judge to rule in the plaintiff's favor? I've seen a lot of these not even make it that far because they settle on some type of an agreement, because it is so difficult to prove all this stuff in real estate sales. So as we get more information, I will let you guys know.